Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I am Bob Van Buren, your host. Certainly glad you could join us once again. And this is sort of a milestone here at the Van Buren Variety Show. This is tonight, episode 30. So for 30 episodes, you've actually put up with me. And I'm very honored that you've decided to stick it through. You don't hold my guest against what show they're on. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you for all being here. It's been a great 30 episodes, and could have done it without you, my viewers, and certainly not my guest. I've had some wonderful guests on and many more to come, I know. So thank you all for tuning into the Van Buren Variety Show. And just a reminder, if you're tuning in for the first time and you haven't subscribed, make sure you do hit that subscribe button and you'll see my alerts coming up. I do have some special shows coming up. Right now, I just do once a week, but you might be seeing some other episodes throughout the week. Maybe not this week, maybe not next, but it's coming. So I'm in the works for that now, getting some other guests lined up. So again, like and share and subscribe if you really like the show, and especially this episode tonight. So again, welcome to another exciting show for the Van Buren Variety Show. Thank you again. Tonight's show, we have a very, very special guest to talk about a very interesting topic, but let me kind of get us into what the subject's going to be about. You know, everywhere we look, we see signs, we see symbols that represent companies, right? You can look at a symbol and you know exactly what that symbol represents. Every company has their own logo or their own saying, that catchphrase, oh, I know that. Just a very short list of companies that we all know just by looking at the label or their name: ExxonMobil, McDonald's, IBM, 20th Century Fox, RCA, AT&T, Kroger, General Dynamics, U.S. Bank, Hyosung, and the list just goes on and on and on. You know the company and what they do just by their name or their logo. But if I dare say, even though the companies I just mentioned are great companies and are easily recognizable, I think you would all agree that this one probably is one of the most universally known logos of all. Let me see what you think about this one. That has been around for a long time, Coca-Cola. It has a long, great history of this company. It is universally known, not just here in North America, but in Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, all across the globe. Everybody knows what Coca-Cola is just by looking at that red logo or red label with the white lettering. One of the most universally known logos ever in the world. But we know what it is. We know it's a great company. We know it's a cola. We know they have lots of products. But every company has a beginning. Every company has a history. How did it start? What were some of their business practices? And how did they get to where they are today? And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. My guest tonight has done his absolute greatest research on this company and is going to be sharing some of the information that he's got, and has even written a book about that we'll talk about later too. So if you're really interested and want to know more, this is the man you need to talk to and read his book and look at his website. So without further ado, let me bring my guest on for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Larry Jorgensen. Larry, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to join you. This is going to be a lot of fun, and we've got a lot of Coca-Cola stories to tell you.
Okay, well, let's just kind of get into it. What got you interested in Coca-Cola? How long have you been doing your research?
Well, I've actually written 2 books, and the first book, it took a little over 2 years, and I didn't intend for it to be a book. I started out to do basically a travel story that the travel magazines might be interested in. And there are 2 museums very close together, that are Coca-Cola museums, not Coca-Cola corporate, but
Okay.
Coca-Cola related museums, one in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and one in Monroe, Louisiana, close
Okay.
enough that it would make a good travel experience for someone. So I thought I'm going to do that travel story. Well, by the time I got done at the second place, which was the one in Louisiana, I realized after talking to some of the people there that this story is so unique, the way we were approaching it, that it's all over the country and it's never been told before. We're not dealing with Coca-Cola corporate in Atlanta. We're dealing with the little entrepreneurs all over the country who got involved with Coca-Cola and the history of how it happened and why it's still there today.
That's very interesting. I'm glad you're doing it because, for me, I'm always, when I go to the convenience store, the grocery store, I see a can of Coca-Cola, I just grab it. I don't think about, how did it get to be where it is today? Why is it this? How did it become this big conglomerate? So just kind of give us a history, Larry, kind of when did it start, or kind of gave us some of their practices, the bottling situations they had, just kind of in the early days. What have you found out?
The first chapter in the book deals with Vicksburg, Mississippi, which is truly the first place that Coca-Cola was ever bottled, not Atlanta, Georgia. And
really? Okay.
It was bottled there. A gentleman who had a soda fountain and a candy business was buying the Coca-Cola syrup. That's all they were selling in those days.
Just the syrup. Okay.
Syrup, and you took it into your little soda fountain, and you put a shot in the glass and a little carbonated water, and voila, you had a drink. Well,
okay.
A situation occurred where he wanted to get the beverage out to people in the country. Now, this is 1895.
1895. Oh,
1895.
Wow.
And he finally found a secondhand bottling machine, which was hand-operated, foot-powered, one bottle at a time. He found it in St. Louis, brought it to Vicksburg, Mississippi, and started bottling Coca-Cola. He had the syrup. Now he had the machine. Well, he made his first couple cases, and he actually sent them to Coca-Cola corporate in Atlanta. At that time, Mr. Asa Candler. And he said, it's all right, you can go ahead and do it. But, he wasn't too excited about it. And old Joe Biedenhaarn in Vicksburg got a little upset because Coca-Cola never sent his bottles back, And in those days, getting bottles was pretty hard. So that particular situation went on for 5 years. He was the only one in the country bottling Coca-Cola. Now, we jump ahead 5 years, and there's a gentleman who is in the Spanish-American War in Cuba. And he's from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And while he's in Cuba, he drinks a drink in a bottle. It was a pineapple drink, kind of a cold pineapple carbonated drink. And
sure.
he loved Coca-Cola. He was getting it at his local soda fountain in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He goes back to Chattanooga and he finds a supposed partner and he says, you know what? We should be bottling Coca-Cola. That could really be a good enterprise. So
absolutely.
The two of them go off to Atlanta and they're going to try to get permission and the franchise nationwide to bottle Coca-Cola. So the first trip in there, Asa Candler, he wouldn't even talk to me, just sent him away. Well, they're determined. They come up with a plan so they'll look like businessmen, and they go back again. Second time back, they continue to say, we want to bottle Coca-Cola. And the man that owns Coca-Cola syrup, he said, that's a dumb idea. He said, I consider that a backstreet business, and I'm worried that it's going to ruin the flavor of Coca-Cola. And they kept at him. And finally, after a couple days, he said, all right. By the way, these two guys were lawyers. Okay, you might know.
Oh, they're lawyer. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So he told him, he said, all right, go back to your hotel room, draw up a contract, bring it to me in the morning. I'll take a look at it. So they draw up a contract to be the exclusive bottlers of Coca-Cola for the United States.
Oh, wow.
nothing
All
like-
over.
Yeah, So they bring it to Asa the next day, and he says, all right, I'm going to sell you the rights to bottle Coca-Cola, but not in Mississippi. Joe's doing it in Mississippi. You can have the rest of the country. He sold them the exclusive rights to bottle Coca-Cola throughout the United States for $1. And the story
$1?
is $1.
$1. Oh, man.
The story is he never even bothered to collect the dollar, and he told him, if this doesn't work, don't come crying back to me. So they go off to Chattanooga, right? Now, between the two of them, they got $1,500. And all of a sudden they realize, we got a bottle of Coca-Cola for the United States. They open up a small bottling plant. And this is futile. This is not going to work. They bottle in Chattanooga, but one day the light goes on. They say, "Wait a minute, we've got the rights, and we're the only ones that have the rights to bottle Coca-Cola. Why don't we start selling pieces of those rights? For example, if you wanted to have Coca-Cola, be a Coca-Cola bottler in Paducah, Kentucky, they'd sell you the rights for 50 miles around Paducah, Kentucky. Sell it to you for $1,500. Now, besides having the rights, you also had the obligation to use Coca-Cola syrup when you made the Coca-Cola. That's all you had to use that. Well, so they would bottle their Coca-Cola, they'd use the syrup, but every time they bought a gallon of syrup, the two guys that sold them the territory would get a commission on the syrup. So they were not only selling the territory, but they were still reaping a little bit of profit off of it.
A little bit, yeah.
That really is how Coca-Cola took off nationwide. People just invested in a product that they thought they could sell, and they took off and started selling it. And that's what made Coca-Cola happen in the United States. It was not because Coca-Cola in Atlanta thought bottling was a great idea. They thought it was a dumb idea. And it took them a long time to realize it was a good idea.
Well, it paid off, actually. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it was a great idea. Wow, that's the beginnings. I mean, I like history, so that's kind of the early history. So I like hearing stuff like that.
Well, in the book, we go back to Vicksburg. There's a photo of what we have termed the world's first Coca-Cola delivery man. And
yeah, okay. Can we show that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, we are going to show you Coca-Cola's first delivery man, a real actual photo. And Larry, I'll let you describe it when I display it.
Okay. Well, he is without a doubt the world's first Coca-Cola delivery man. That photo was taken in 1896.
1896. Wow.
1 year after they started bottling old Joe Biedenhaarn in Vicksburg. So you can tell at least he was getting pretty successful because the wagon is loaded up with cases of Coca-Cola. And there's the mule, and they're going to deliver out to the country, just like the mission was. Let's get the Coca-Cola out to the country. And my golly, he had a load of it. He was about to leave Vicksburg and head out into the country. So that indeed is a very classic picture, and there's only one of a kind like it.
That is so interesting. You said this is in Vicksburg, you said?
Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Wow. I love that. The first Coca-Cola, really the official Coca-Cola delivery man.
The very first one. Yep.
Interesting. Well, Larry, we have some comments and from our live chat. So I'll bring somebody. One of the comments that was on. We discussed this yesterday in our pre-interview. So let me see if you can comment on this. Asking, was cocaine in the original Coke? I'll let
Yeah,
you answer that.
I've probably answered that numerous times. Um, the original formula for Coca-Cola by Mr. John Pemberton, who it was created because he was seriously injured in the Civil War and was suffering major pain, and he was also a pharmacist, and he discovered that he could make a beverage using the cola nut and the coca leaf. Coca, okay, and yes, the coca leaf is where, when it's processed the way they process it, however, they do make cocaine, that white coffee stuff, okay?
Sure.
He was using it in a different manner. And it was being used basically to create the flavor, and the medicinal value of the coca leaf. Well, ultimately, there was a very slight trace of what could be interpreted to be cocaine, only because it came from the coca leaf. It was not like the white powdered cocaine in there.
Right.
And it became such there's cocaine in there, that must be why you like it. Asa Candler spent literally thousands of dollars, hired chemists and pharmacists and whatever after this rumor started, which was only slightly accurate, to make sure there would never, ever again be any trace of anything that resembled cocaine in the Coca-Cola beverage, And it wasn't really cocaine. Yes, it was the coca leaf, but it wasn't cocaine.
That's always been the rumor, I guess. That's always been a story. So, and I've actually wondered that myself.
Yeah, it's a good excuse to explain why you love it so much and you have to have more.
Well, let's talk about some of the history of Coca-Cola. As far as the bottling companies, we don't see a lot of the local bottling companies like we used to. So are there museums around, Larry, that a person can visit about Coca-Cola if they're interested?
There are several. Of course, Coca-Cola Corporate has got the huge one in Atlanta.
Atlanta, okay.
And what we tried to do in the book is to talk about everything but Atlanta, because we were talking about the guys that made it happen. Vicksburg, Mississippi, the building that was the soda fountain and the candy store, etc., has been restored. You can go there, you can see it as it was, you can see the old bottling equipment. It's all there. It's a nice little museum.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
In Monroe, Louisiana, which is not that far away, it's called the Biedenhaarn Coca-Cola Museum, because Joe Biedenhaarn, was the guy who started bottling in Vicksburg. He ultimately moved to Monroe because they bought a bottler over there, an existing bottler that was making, sarsaparilla or whatever, and started bottling Coca-Cola. And actually, there was Joe, and he had 5 brothers, and they all got involved one way or another in Coca-Cola bottling. They started to buy bottling plants around the southwest, and they became one of the largest Coca-Cola bottling companies, independent bottlers in the nation, because they realized as they got into this that this was truly a good business, and it became it was a family business. It was the Biedenhaarn Coca-Cola business. All of the brothers were involved. They'd buy a new plant, they'd send a brother out there to run it, and it was a fantastic family. And in this area, and I'm sure in your area in Texas, there are plants that were Biedenhaarn plants, and there are still member. There's one member of the Biedenhaarn family who lives in San Antonio, who is
Really?
still in the bottling business, and he has two plants. One's in Texas, and one, I believe, is in Oklahoma. So the tradition continues. But what also has happened, like in most businesses, as it went through generations, sometimes the fourth, fifth generation didn't want to do this
Yeah,
anymore.
they don't care. Yeah.
You got consolidation. For example, what started out in Chattanooga with one plant, ultimately the people involved bought more plants, and then a gentleman from Birmingham, Alabama,
Hmm.
came in and bought what was in Chattanooga, and he got very aggressive and ultimately created what is now the third largest independent Coca-Cola bottler in the country. It's called Coca-Cola United Bottling, and they're huge. They're in
Wow.
7 states, and they've got they've bought. What they did is they would buy a lot of these little bottlers who, for whatever reason, wanted to get out. Maybe
Hmm.
family didn't want it anymore, whatever. So they would just buy up these small bottlers and put it into one big operation. And of course, as transportation improved, highways improved, it was a lot easier to bottle in one location and
Sure.
distribute than to have a little bottling plant in Weatherford, Texas, or wherever.
Yeah, sure.
And that contributed to the consolidation. It was easy to have a big plant, and they all do it now. All Pepsi and all the others do it. They have one big bottler. If they've bought a plant maybe in a smaller town, they may keep that building as a distribution center. Next time you're driving down the road, and it'll happen, you'll see a big semi that says Coca-Cola go flying by you. Well, chances are he's taking Coca-Cola from a bottler to a distribution center that will
I see.
then take it out to the individual retailers. It's a lot more efficient now to haul it down the road than to set up a bottling plant in a little bitty town.
Right. Take an existing one that maybe already has the equipment you need and just kind of repurpose it, I guess.
Yeah, and then build it. There's an example that happened this past year. There's a very huge Coca-Cola bottling operation in suburban Chicago. Up until this past year, they've been pretty much Midwest, East, so forth, but they're big. They are one of the biggest. And they recently bought a plant and a Coca-Cola distributor in Tullahoma, Tennessee. I don't have this as fact, but my guess is the main reason they bought that, they want to move south, and there's a bottling plant that they could buy to help them expand to the south. They didn't buy just
Wow.
a distributor, and I've been in that bottling plant, and it's great. It's a modern plant, and the Coke bottles go flying by. In fact, they even bottle the Dasani water for Coca-Cola in that plant in Tennessee.
The same place.
They,
Oh, wow.
they've got a system of some sort of reverse electrolysis or whatever that purifies the water before it's bottled. It is so pure, and I imagine all of the Dasani bottled water is like this. It will not carry an electrical charge, and they have
Really?
they have
Oh,
a
wow.
process to do that, and the water is bottled there just like the Coca-Cola is.
That is interesting. Oh, wow. Hey, I would like to ask you a question. Let's kind of back up a little bit. You touched on, you were telling a story earlier, and our audience may not know who this is. You mentioned a person named Asa. Who is this Asa, and what did he do?
Candler. He was the second owner of Coca-Cola.
Second
John,
owner. Oh, wow.
yeah, when we say owner, owned the brand, owned, making the syrup and so forth. The syrup formula was invented by John Pemberton in Columbus, Georgia. There's a little dispute as to whether it was that he invented it in Columbus or whether they invented it in Atlanta. But one of the archivists from Coca-Cola says no, it was in Columbus. So
Columbus, Georgia.
Columbus,
Oh.
Georgia. He invented it. He moved to Atlanta, and then that's where it really kicked off. He perfected what he had invented. Started actually, so the first place he sold it to was a drugstore with a soda fountain, because remember he created the formula for medicinal purposes. Supposedly, it helped with the pain that had suffered in the Civil War. So that's how it started. Well,
Wow.
besides helping with pain, it also tasted pretty good, And it took
Of course.
he kept it until he was up in years, and he was starting to age, and Asa Candler bought the syrup rights, but they weren't bottling then; they were just making the syrup. He's the one that told the guys from Chattanooga, that's a dumb idea to bottle. He was more interested in making the syrup. So Asa Candler was number two owner of Coca-Cola. And he had it for about 20 years, I believe. As it grew, there was a group, they called it the syndicate, a group of guys that got together and bought out Candler, and it's grown from there. But and obviously today, I'm not giving any financial advice, but everything I read tells me that Coca-Cola stock is a good one to own, and I guess Mr. Buffett would go along with that comment.
Well, they've proven themselves. I mean, they've been in business for over 100 years now, and they're still going strong.
Yeah, and they stay up to date with what the consumer wants. I mean, it's not just Coca-Cola. I mean, one of their first things, how many decades ago, is they bought Minute Maid orange juice, and that's continued to be their theme. They buy products that are involved in energy drinks, they're involved in fruit drinks, they're involved in milk. Next time you go into a grocery store, look for the label Fair Life. Fair Life milk. Okay? That's owned by Coca-Cola.
Wow.
They have been smart enough to meet the needs of the consumer.
They diversify, obviously.
Diversify. So. They're not selling buggy whips anymore. So,
well, let me ask you this now. From naturally, in modern day Coca-Cola here in the 21st century is highly successful, but I always have a respect for history. So I know you mentioned museums, but is there other efforts to preserve history? Is there like auctions going on that has old Coca-Cola products that can be purchased?
Well, there's several things that are going on. First of all, you've got the Coca-Cola Collectors, and it's a big organization of people who collect anything that's got a Coca-Cola logo on it. Okay. And they're huge. They're not only all over the United States, they have clubs, they have an annual meeting where they get together and they bring in signs and plaques and plates.
Oh, wow, but that's interesting.
Well, yeah. In fact, the last one was just held in July in Baton Rouge. Next July, they're going up to Green Bay, and but there are Coca-Cola collectors all over the world. If you go to the Coca-Cola Collectors website, they'll give you all the information on where they are and the different places and what they do. And each area, there'll be a little chapter, a little club. There might be, in Texas, I think there's at least three clubs, and they will have their own little individual rallies and swap meets and whatever, So there's probably one close to you if you want to collect. The other thing that preserves the history is the I call murals, the billboards, the signs that are painted on buildings, that are painted along the road. They are so valued that people and communities, cities, are spending money to rehabilitate these signs because they value them as part of the community. They were there forever. They represent the community. And I just recently did a story about one in Michigan. They raised over $150,000
Oh,
to
wow.
restore this particular mural. It had some difficult things to do. First of all, it was on a very old, decaying building that was mostly hanging over the Kalamazoo River. So just reinforcing the building and improving the structure that the mural was on was expensive, and then completely. And when they redo a mural, they will go to Coca-Cola corporate. Now, what's the exact red color? And they'll get the exact colors, the reds and the greens, and they duplicate it. And you can tell the age of them. If you see a mural and you look at there'll be a sales slogan. It might say, you know, refreshes, or relieves. I think the first one of the first ones was something about refreshes and relieves. Well, every so many years, they would change that tag slogan. So
For sure.
I've got a book that lists all of those slogans and the dates that they were used. So if you see a mural and you see what the slogan is, you can go back to the directory. Oh, that mural had to have been painted between 1909 and 1920.
Absolutely.
And there are communities that just really treasure having a Coca-Cola mural in their community.
Well, Larry, let me share a photo with the audience now. It's a photo that you sent me. So you're talking about the murals. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at this photo that Larry is going to share with us about the mural. So, is this the mural that you were telling us about? They're restoring. Is this it? Or is this another one?
This is another one, but very similar to what they were doing in Albion, Michigan. And again, you can see they go to great effort, match the color, make sure the logo is right. It's a science. In fact, there's a group in Georgia, University of Georgia, a group of art students that now goes around offering their service to people that want to restore Coca-Cola murals, and they've done them in many locations throughout the state of Georgia. So the university wants them to do it because it's a great way to train them in art. It's not just slap up a sign. It's a logo. It's a design. It's part of history, and it's something that I'm glad they're doing because it is important to us. We go back to talk about old Mr. Asa Candler. He was one of the first ones to really get active in the idea of outdoor advertising. And that's why you see so much of it today, because he believes in it. He believes strongly in putting a Coca-Cola logo on anything he could. He once told movie producers in Hollywood, and this would have been a long time ago, he boasted to them, there will come a day if you produce a movie outside, you will not be able to avoid a Coca-Cola sign in the background. Well, he came close on one.
That's funny.
So and there's so many ways that the name is being preserved. It just, I find it amazing. And the other thing too that is the Coca-Cola bottle. And we can talk about the history of the bottle if you want.
Please, yes. And in fact, if you could tell that story, I'll tell you this, in our live chat, people are talking about, a few people talked about Coke souvenirs and what they'd be worth now, which kind of brings me to the next point. You mentioned bottling. What was that story I'd like you to share with my audience about this, well, for lack of a better word, this particular bottle that sneaked
Right.
under the radar, so to speak. So kind
Right.
of tell us about that and how what it's sold for, and kind of
What happened?
what about this missing bottle, so to speak.
Back in 1905, Coca-Cola was starting to get a lot of competitors and a lot of knockoffs. People, and bottles in those days, whatever they could find, they were bottling with all kinds of bottles. But it made it easy for someone to have Coca-Cola spelled with a K in a bottle and say, this is Coca-Cola.
Oh,
And so Coca-Cola said, wait a minute. We're going to have a bottle. It's going to be our bottle. When you pick it up, you're going to know it's Coca-Cola. So they issued a challenge to the glass bottle manufacturers.
mm-hmm.
They said, design a bottle that will be our bottle. We'll copyright it, patent it, whatever, and
Sure.
no one else can use it. So there were 6 companies that entered the challenge. A company in Indiana, the Root Glass Company, won. They had a meeting of Coca-Cola bottlers. They selected this bottle, which is the one we know now, as the bottle, and this was in 1905.
Oh, wow.
So the deal was everybody brought a half a dozen prototypes to this convention where they would pick the winner. The ones that weren't picked were all destroyed. The one that the Root Company won with, one bottle went to the Coca-Cola archives. The rest of them were supposed to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
One escaped. Somehow,
One escaped.
And we know that the one that escaped was, in fact, one of the prototypes, because if you look at the bottom, the date on it is 1905. Coca-Cola did not start bottling with that bottle until 1906. So it had
a year later.
It had to be the escaped prototype. 2 years ago, that bottle surfaced at an auction, and it went for over $150,000.
$150,000 for one bottle.
Remember when you used to collect them for 2 cents?
Yes. Oh, wow.
But there are, again, we talk about collectors and how they value Coca-Cola. The Coca-Cola bottle collectors are avid, and they can tell you there's a directory, and remember they used to put the name of the bottling plant on the bottom.
Yes, I do remember that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you happen to have a bottle that was from a plant that maybe was a little bitty plant, maybe only lasted for 5-6 years, boy, you had a bottle that's worth a lot more than a bottle from Coca-Cola in Chicago, And wow. you can purchase a directory that will list every plant, every bottle they made, even the ones now that they make that, are tributes to the Dallas Cowboys or whoever, they list them all and they tell you the value of them. Coca-Cola will produce a bottle, a limited production bottle for an event. When the New Orleans Saints won the Super Bowl many years ago, there was a bottle produced for that, and that became a major collector's item. Wow. So the guys that collect, I talked to a guy in Indiana who had a collection of Coca-Cola bottles in his basement. He had over 2,000 bottles, and he
2,000.
Yeah, and he knew the value of everyone, and he was looking for more. Kind of ironic. I just read a couple of days ago a story out of a Canadian newspaper, Ontario, where a gentleman up there just got the Guinness record for collecting the most Coca-Cola cans. He had over 11,000 different Coca-Cola cans.
Wow. Oh,
wow. Just like your map behind you, he had them from all over the world. And he had over 11,000 of them. And Guinness gave him he sent him there with the plaque. He's got the Guinness World Record for the most Coca-Cola cans. that shows you, it's, I think what it is, because you got beer can collectors and that kind of stuff too, if it's something that you enjoyed in your life and you see that logo on something, it's a pleasant memory.
Absolutely.
So you're collecting a memory of something you enjoyed, and you can look at that and say, "Oh, that was great," or "Those were good times over at
Sure.
Joe's house. We watched the football game or whatever." But it's collecting memories. Is what it is, and the biggest memory maker is Coca-Cola.
Well, let me give kind of a public service announcement to my audience, those that are watching live and those that will be watching later. You might want to look through your stuff, because if you find some older Coca-Cola memorabilia, you never know what that might be worth, especially if it's older. Correct, Larry?
Well, and you have to be careful because Coca-Cola is so popular that there's a lot of reproductions, just like the
Oh, that's true.
the
Yes.
Coca-Cola trays, okay, and all the tin things, the tin cans, whatever that you see, the Coca-Cola. Flip them over and look on the bottom, and it'll tell you if it's a reproduction, because Coca-Cola, to authorize that product to be made again, and they have to authorize it, they also require that it be listed on the bottom as to when it was made and that it's a reproduction. It's not the original. So if you're Coca-Cola collecting, watch out for the reproduction. Not that the reproductions aren't valuable, but when you get an original, that's really valuable.
That's where the money comes in. Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of ironic that we're talking tonight, because I was out of town over the weekend with a friend of mine, and it just so happened in this town, I took a picture. This is my picture that I took. There was a car on the side of the road, and I couldn't resist it. I want to share this with you and with my audience. This is the car that I saw when I was out of town over the weekend. Look at that, decked out with Coca-Cola. So there's a fan right there.
Bob, when they had that Coca-Cola Collectors convention in Baton Rouge a few months ago, the hotel where they had the convention, in the parking lot, there were many like that. I mean, there was a little Volkswagen that you could hardly tell what it was. It had so much Coca-Cola on it. And I guess, again, it's, this is my drink. I love it. I'm a collector, and it gives me happiness. And boy, you'll see him going down the road. But that guy, he did a good job on that. He got a good one there.
It's a really good paint job. Well, let's talk about you. We at the top of the show, Larry. You talked about your research, and you talked about all the things that you've done in your book. So let's talk a little bit about your book, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the cover of Larry's book, and we will also be sharing the website shortly. But let me show you the cover, and Larry, kind of tell us more, kind of a bit about your book, your research, and kind of how long it took you to research it, and kind of where you got the information, and kind of tell us basically what it's all about.
It took over 2 years, and the purpose of the book, and if you look at the subhead on there, people and places. Mm-hmm. So the book is both a travel guide of sorts and a history. And the idea is to tell the reader places he can go today and see, touch, and feel something that is or was Coca-Cola. And while he's looking at it, reading about it, we're going to tell him why that's the history part. What are you looking at? Why is that Coca-Cola history? Here's a plant that maybe now is a museum, or here's a plant that maybe is a brew pub, or maybe it's an entertainment center. There's a real neat plant in Griffin, Georgia, that has become a kind of a boutique type shopping mall. Got some neat,
really?
neat shops there. I mentioned Paducah a lot because I love that plant in Paducah, and it's got a pizza place in it. It's got a gift store. It's got a brew pub, and it's a beautiful old Coca-Cola plant.
Wow!
And that's in Paducah, Kentucky. So the idea is to tell you where you can go, and either it was a plant or it was a special Coca-Cola sign. But if it was a plant, we want you to have access to it. We don't want it to be, a building that is now housing, 20 accountants or something.
A manufacturing plant or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's a place that has a consumer interest right now. So here's where you can go in and have a brew or buy something or just enjoy. A lot of these places, if I did write about one that has become an office, but
Okay.
and this is in Tennessee, but he has created within the office a small museum, and
That's nice.
he's an architect at a construction firm, and he has invited people to come in and to look at the antiques that he's collected, the Coca-Cola memorabilia, and he has a tremendous set of Coca-Cola came out during the Second World War with a whole series of airplane, the different planes that were used in the war. And they came out with a whole series of them. He's got the entire series posted on the wall, framed and posted on the wall as you walk in. So they welcome people to come see, and the plant itself has such a unique architecture to it that they wanted to preserve it and keep it. It's very different. It's kind of almost spacey, and it's in the book. So that's what we've done. We've got a lot of historic photos in the book. We've gone to families. We've interviewed families. They've dug out photos for us. This is when old Grandpa Joe had the plant, and we've gone to historical societies.
Sure.
We've gone to libraries, wherever we could get photos, just like that photo we had of the world's first delivery man.
Yeah.
There's probably over 200 photos in the book, and the book is 200 and some pages. So there's a lot of copy, a lot of photos, and I've had people tell me it's pretty easy to read.
That's good.
We're not flowery, okay? But here's the story, and hope you enjoy it, type of thing.
That's cool, I'm looking forward to reading the book myself. We're going to put the website up here in a second, but we do have a comment from our people on the live chat. Kathleen says she's been to the Paducah Coca-Cola factory.
Yeah, it's a beauty, isn't it? And when that plant was built, the history to it, I'm trying to think of the name of the family, and I will in a minute. She probably knows it. They originally built a plant, a smaller plant, and the Ohio River flooded. Okay,
Oh, no.
And this would have been 1920 or whatever. The Ohio River flooded the whole town, and the guy who had the plant escaped on a syrup barrel. Okay, he floated away, and he was rescued. And he said when he was rescued, when I finally get out of this, I'm going to build a plant on higher ground. And that's what he did. And if I'm not mistaken, I think, and maybe this lady knows, the brew pub in there, I think it's called Higher Ground Brewing or something like that.
Higher ground.
And when he built that plant, he also said this is going to be one of the most beautiful plants that was ever constructed. And there's a picture on the back of my book, and there's a picture of it inside the book. In addition, and if the lady's been to Paducah, she knows there's along the river, there's a series of river wall murals. And
really?
That Coca-Cola plant is one of the murals. And the mural depicts the opening night of that plant. And it was a big deal in Paducah. And it still is a tremendous, it's ranked as one of the top tourist attractions in Kentucky, this wall of murals and the Coca-Cola plant. When Luther, I'm trying to think of Luther's last name, but anyway, when Luther had the plant built, and I actually had the opportunity to interview a distant relative, she said that he was meticulous about the wood that went into that plant. Everything had to be first class. If it wasn't, even the bricks. I mean, he would refuse it. So
That's
it's a
great.
dandy, and it's a sight to see if you get anywhere near Paducah, Kentucky, like this lady did. Go
Will
see
do.
it. Yeah, it's a beauty.
Well, let me put your website up here. Let me display that real quick. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Larry's website. It is www.thecoca-colatrail.com. And there's no dash between Coca-Cola.
Right.
And it's thecoca-colatrail.com. So, Larry, just tell my audience, if they go to this website, what will they see? What will be there?
Well, there's going to be both books, the Coca-Cola Trail and the sequel, which is called Return to the Coca-Cola Trail. And that shows you the enthusiasm of Coca-Cola people. People read the first book, and the next thing I'm getting emails and messages and phone calls. Hey, what about my plant in Starkville? You didn't have that in there, And there were so many calls and so many things that really interested me that I said, I got to do the second book. And I had as much fun and met as many wonderful people doing the second book. So you've got both books on there, and we've got some memorabilia that have I'm not a collector, but it's some things I've found that are for sale. And then we have this wonderful item for Christmas called Coca-Cola pepper jelly. And I just did it for fun. I had somebody make it. We came up with a formula for making a pepper jelly using the Coca-Cola syrup.
I've never heard of that before. Oh, it sounds interesting.
Not cola flavor, but Coca-Cola syrup to make the jelly. And so we've got that on the website. There's a little booklet that tells you all the neat things you can make with Coca-Cola pepper jelly, and it was just something fun I wanted to do, and it's available, so give it a try. I'll tell you, pepper jelly on cream cheese on a cracker.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful snack.
You're making me hungry just by talking. I think I gained 5 pounds listening to you right there.
By the way, we are going to make available, it's in production now. I'm having an artist embellish that first Coca-Cola delivery man to create a color painting of it. And we're going to make reproductions of that, prints of that, and make that available as well. I've had a lot of people, I'll be at a show or something talking about the book, and I'll mention the photo and show them the photo. Where could we get one of those? So I thought, we're gonna have it available. And I got permission from the gentleman who actually owns the photo to have a painting made, and then we're going to reproduce the painting.
See, I like hearing stuff like that because I think it's very important that we remember our history. Know where we've been and where we're going, and how in this case, how a company got to be where it is today. So I applaud your research.
Let's not tear down Coca-Cola murals. Let's build them up.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm just going to bring your book up again. Ladies and gentlemen, I am looking forward to reading this myself. As you know, audiences that have been followed me all this time, I am a big history fanatic. I believe in preserving history, reading about history, learning. So this sounds like a great start on the Coca-Cola. Well, let me ask you, Larry, in this cover, the very top one, there's a picture. So do you know where that picture's from?
Yeah,
or where does that come?
And you're in Texas. That is in Monahans, Texas.
Monahan, Texas.
And there's a chapter in that book about Monahans, which is also the Coca-Cola. There's a Coca-Cola relationship. What they call it, the world's biggest Coca-Cola, not the world's biggest Coca-Cola, but the world's biggest oil drum or something. It was a lake, and I think it was a Shell or Exxon. One of them during the booming days of oil dug this big lake and made it into a tank and paved the sides and so forth to hold excess oil. They were pumping so much oil. Well, it didn't work. The oil all leaked out, and here's this big, huge cement lake really left, and it's been there's a park. If you go to the website and look up Monahan's, there's a park out there now, and there is a small Coca-Cola museum as part of that park, and that museum represents what was the original Coca-Cola plant in Monahan's. And there's a lot of Coca-Cola history out there. And and then you talk about the museums. Cuero, Texas.
Uh-huh.
Pardon my Louisiana accent.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all.
Cuero has got a wonderful little Coca-Cola plant that's been closed for quite a while, and there is an effort underway to try to create a Coca-Cola museum in that plant. So, if you know anybody in Cuero, vote yes. Vote yes for the Coca-Cola Museum, because they really want to try to make it happen. And the gentleman who's behind it, it was his, I think, granddad that actually built the plant.
Oh,
So
really? Wow.
there has been tucked away some artifacts that go all the way back to the original plant. So I hope they do it. It would be
It would be.
more history preserved.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to encourage you to purchase Larry Jorgensen's book. If you love history, and especially if you love Coca-Cola, this is definitely the book for you. It's called The Coca-Cola Trail, People and Places in the History of Coca-Cola, written by my very own guest here, Larry Jorgensen. And he has another book out too as well. What was the name of that one, Larry?
Return to
Return
to the Coca-Cola Trail, and it's just more of the same. And it's the result of people who read the first one calling me up and saying, you forgot about, and so we didn't want to disappoint them. We
Sure.
went and did their stories too, and again, there's some great stories in there.
Absolutely.
And the neat thing, Bob, it's all true. This that's all. I'm a history writer. I can't make stuff up. I admire people who can write novels, because they got to be very creative.
Sure.
I'm an old news dog, just looking for the facts.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, here is the website that I've displayed on the screen for his website, www.thecocacolatrail.com. I highly, highly recommend you visit it. I've been there. It's got a wealth of information, as well as information how you can purchase these interesting books that I can't wait to dive into. So, Larry, I appreciate you. Oh, wait.
If they get it on the website and make a note, I'll autograph it, sign it to them. Okay, whoever, or if they got somebody they want to send the book to, or give it to them as a present, just put a little note in there. Please sign this to Uncle Bob.
Sure. Yeah, right to me. Well, Larry, I appreciate your time. This has been a great, great learning lesson for me. I know my audience has enjoyed it too. So, and I appreciate your efforts are very much appreciated. Thank you for researching such a well-known company, because like I said in my monologue, every company has its, beginnings. And so, and to hear how it kind of got started through the bottling situation and all that. So it's very good. So can't wait to read your book, Larry.
Thank you, Bob, and it's been fun, and we'll come up with some other adventures for you. I'm working on another book that will take you in a different direction, and maybe we can talk about that in the future.
Okay. Have a great night, Larry. And again, thank you again.
Thank you, Bob.
And ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you tuning in, but this is going to end this episode, the 30th episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I couldn't have done it. I mean, I cannot take any credit for this. My credit belongs to you, the subscribers and the viewers, as well as the guests that I've had on. Thank you so much for helping me. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And so really, I'm very humbled that people are tuning in, subscribing, watching, and the guests that I've had on. It's very great. And 30 episodes, it's really great. So I'm very, very touched. So For those of you watching that maybe haven't subscribed yet, there's that subscribe button, and you'll be able to see more guests and more topics coming up, and maybe some extra shows along the way, maybe some specials. So just let me know what you'd like to see. I'll have an email address at the end of the show. And if you have anybody that knows, has a hobby, a profession, a talent, can do a how-to segment, or just something they're interested in, you'll see the email address at the end of my show. So just drop me an email, and I can definitely get them scheduled for you. But for now, that's going to end this episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I am Bob Van Buren. Have a great week, everybody. Good night.